practicing hands-on astrologer who has performed thousands of readings for people all over the world. Many of his accurate predictions, from the death of David Bowie to Trump's victory in 2016 to the COVID crisis, have earned him respect as one of astrology's top prognosticators. It's an honor to introduce to you here today Mr. Robert Phoenix.
Okay, can you hear me okay? Yeah. Okay, well, thank you for having me. And I want to say thank you to Russell and Shannon for having the courage to put this event together, because it's a daunting task. I have an event that I do every year in the Hill Country in October, so I know the amount of work that goes into this. And to have it during an eclipse is a whole other level. So thank you, and let's give a big round of applause. So I was chanting this prayer. Om Ara Benza Nana Diddy 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 Diddy. And I thought to myself, who has saying a prayer for Puff Daddy on their eclipse bingo card? Right? Om Ara Benza Na Diddy 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 Diddy. A little more reference. We've had a lot of reference this morning. We like reference. We love reference. So we'll get a little bit of reference here. How many synchronicity junkies do we have in the house? Always 2 hands. Yeah. So yesterday, something happened to me that was really kind of mind-blowing. And it's always great to have your mind blown in a really mundane situation. So let me recount the story, because I think it has some significance about what we're going to talk about. So yesterday I was at HEB, and I was filling up my 5-gallon water jugs. Kind of normal practice, right? Yep. So I go to the place where you can buy your lotto tickets and pay for your power bill and get change. So I'm in line waiting to get change, and there's a woman right about my age, and she was standing next to me, and she said, what are those? Really? So these are water bottles. Really? What are they for? And I said, well, you fill them up, and then you use the water. Oh, you hook them up to your faucet? I'm like, no. You turn them over, and you put them in an urn, and then you dispense water from them. Oh my, I've never seen one of those before. You know, this woman's probably about 65 years old, right? And she said, I just use a pitcher, and I just pour the water in the pitcher, and it has a filter. So if it's a good filter, it's probably not a bad thing. But I was astounded that this person had never seen a 5-gallon water jug before. And they were from a foreign country. I don't think they were from another planet. They were from here in Texas. So I thought about it. What is the significance of this moment, right? We have those kinds of experiences. Well, here it is. The water jug is Aquarius, right? It's when we empty the contents from the container into the cistern for the vessel. And the filter and the little pitcher, that's Pisces, because it's receptive. So I thought to myself, this is an interesting moment. All of a sudden now we're talking about Aquarius, and she doesn't even really realize that. And the reason for me that it became somewhat of a synchronistic moment, one of the things that popped into my field of awareness was the bridge collapsing in Baltimore. Everybody's heard about that, right?
Yeah.
And that happened pretty much on the lunar eclipse. So I looked up the chart for the city of Baltimore when it was chartered, and lo and behold, Baltimore has the moon in Libra about 2 degrees off the eclipse. Conjunct Pluto, Baltimore going through yet another Saturn return with Saturn in Pisces. So anybody ever tells you that astrology is fake, just tell them that story. And it might resonate a little bit with them. Are we here? Ready to go? Okay. So one of the things that came to my attention about this eclipse are the ancillary events that are associated with this eclipse. Everybody probably recognizes that, right? That's CERN. So they're going to flip CERN on during this eclipse. Right? So that's one ancillary event. Number 2, we have the Devil's Comet, which is coming in right at the tail of the eclipse. The last time the Devil's Comet was here was in 1954, and that's when Bill Haley and his Comets wrote the song Rock Around the Clock. A year later, it would be released. It'd be the first rock and roll record, and rock, as you know, was called The Devil's Music. Apparently, we've got an infestation of cicadas coming at the same time. Over in Jerusalem, they've got one of Texas' finest red heifers that they're getting ready to slaughter on the Olive Mount. Down here, off the coast of Virginia, there are 3 missiles that NASA plans on firing into the direction of the eclipse. Does anybody know the name of the missiles? Apophis. Apophis is the world serpent, comes out of Egyptian mythology, and the goal of Apophis is to rise up and consume the sun. So what we have here are an incredible amount of ancillary events taking place during this time. And so I asked myself, why are they taking place? Well, this we know theoretically is on its way. It's been here before. They've got a very long-term calendrical cycle for cicadas, but this and this and this are all happening at the same time. Not only that, but if you look at the eclipse path, it crosses all these towns called Nineveh, which is a biblical town where Noah eventually has this spiritual test, which he fails. Job, which he fails, but eventually he pulls through. But it's a really powerful eclipse line, right, with Nineveh. Kerrville, which is the place in this country that has the longest period for totality, is at the same latitude as Israel, which is pretty fascinating in a lot of ways. And if you look at not this eclipse, but the eclipse that came in October, the center point would be right here. Right? This is the center point for 2017 and then 2024. So this is a really prominent location for this eclipse. The other thing that really grabbed my attention during this time is the drama that's being played out. I call it a passion play between Ben Shapiro, Candace Owens, and Michael Knowles. Are you familiar with any of this? Okay, let me fill you in. Ben Shapiro is one of the main people at broadcast platform called the Daily Wire. And Ben Shapiro has made it very clear that his political and personal attention and feelings are very strongly Israeli. So he's been unrepentant about what's happening in Israel and in Gaza. Now, I promise you this will not be political. So don't hang your hat on that yet. Candace Owens has been speaking out about what's been happening in the Middle East. And she has been passionate about the inhumanity and the violence and the unchecked aggression that is taking place there. And as a result of that, it's made Ben Shapiro and the people at the Daily Wire very uncomfortable. So what's happened is that there's been an ideological showdown between Ben Shapiro and Candace Owens. And one of the things that Candace Owens uttered during her last few weeks at the Daily Wire is a phrase that's become very popular, and the phrase is "Christ is King," at which Ben Shapiro took great umbrage over the uttering of this phrase, "Christ is King," because for Ben Shapiro, Christ is not king. And that was really, I would say, the final nail in the cross for Candace Owens. She was let go. And when she was let go, it illustrated the hypocrisy of Ben Shapiro and the so-called conservatives at the Daily Wire. That they could be against cancel culture for people that had ideas that were contrary to theirs. But when it came to an idea that was in their wheelhouse and that they didn't like, Candace got canceled. So we see hypocrisy. In this role, Ben Shapiro is playing the role of the Sanhedrin. He's judging her. Right? Over here we have Michael Knowles. Now, Michael Knowles is a friend of Candace Owens, and clearly her husband, who is his best friend, according to Michael Knowles, and Michael had an opportunity to speak out against what happened to her. And he didn't. He kind of said, well, he's my friend, and she's my friend, and it's like a family squabble, and we all work it out. Well, he could have stood by Candace Owens, and he could have supported her. And he could have said, my relationship, by the way, he's the godfather of one of her daughters. My relationship with her and my relationship with the truth means more than my position at the Daily Wire. Not long after that, Candace Owens stopped following him on Twitter, TikTok. In this role, Michael Knowles plays Judas because he's taking 40 pieces of silver over the truth and the relationship with Candace Owens. So what we have here is we have a biblical passion play being acted out before our very eyes. And it's happening during the eclipse cycle. I think this is very important to understand. Now, Candace, the name Candace, has a very interesting etymological origination. Candace is an Ethiopian queen who decides that she's going to follow Christ. So even the name lines up with what's happening astrologically, and I would say to some extent biblically. But I'm here to present to you a different story. And the story that, for me, is the most comfortable and the most encouraging might be something that you would resonate with as well. And it has to do with the second coming of Christ. And when I say that, I know it brings up a lot of red flags in people's brains. But how I see it and how I view it and how I feel it is that this is the cosmic Christ. And it comes back to all of us. And it has nothing to do with what's happening in Jerusalem, or a one-state solution, or a two-state solution. And this is all happening when? During the time of Easter, the resurrection. All these things are taking place right here and now. We have the manipulation, the symbolic, and the energetic manipulation of events. We have these other events that are lined up, slightly biblical in their own regard, and it just came to my awareness. This is where we are. We are in the end times. And what Shannon was talking about this morning, in her own version of where we are, and people taking conscious awareness of their thoughts and their feelings, and reflecting on the outer world really being a dimension of their inner world, all of that is true. The only other element that I would like to add, we go to the next slide, is this, which is the return of the cosmic Christ. So when you reflect upon the eclipse, when you reflect upon the power and the transformational thrust and velocity of this eclipse, I want you to hold this in your consciousness, because we are nothing without Prime Creator, Source, God, and the Atman. We are all the Atman. And Christ said, you can do all of these things and more. Remember that. So, it also dovetails with the sign of Aries, the individual, right? It's the individual, and yet we are experiencing the collective event together, which is the eclipse. So we have the merger of the micro and the macro, which Shannon covered this morning as well. So we're in a very powerful time. Now, the other side of this is that we've never been close to a World War III, I think. If you follow what's happening in the Middle East, it's getting very hot. Iran is talking about firing missiles into Tel Aviv, Jerusalem. And why is this all happening? It's because of this. Because they want to stave off. They know this is coming. It's on its way. And they have been doing everything in their power for a very long time to keep us from this. Whether it's 9/11, whether it's COVID, whether it's JFK, it's all part of the same supernatural distraction to take us off the timeline and to take our awareness away from this. And they can only do that for so long, because this is way more powerful than that. And so what we're dealing with is a concrescence of events leading up to this. And I would say, do not be afraid of that. It may pain your programming, it may pain your ideological buttons, but at the end of the day, this is incredibly universal. It touches everyone and everything. And if we have any chance to reverse the tide, to change what's happening on this planet, it is not political. We're not going to vote our way out of it. It's the ability for the return of the cosmic Christ to enter into our conscious awareness. And that's everything. Not just you, or you, but the little dog that was out here, and all the plants, and all the trees. Everything. And I just find it so fascinating that we're in this period where there's this intense eclipse happening, and we have all this drama going on. Why? It's because they know that this is coming. And I clearly don't think it's a bad thing. I think it's an important thing. And I think if we all open to it and the possibility of it, that we can help facilitate that. That we're not at the effect. We're not at the effect of the cause of the great distraction that's happening politically, economically, etc. So these are end times, but they're good. Because if we look at the world that we inhabit, we've been living in, we're seeing that there's gross injustice and corruption and violence in more ways than ever before. So I say, hallelujah, goodbye to that, and let's welcome this new energy during the eclipse. Okay? And we're all part of it. I want to leave you with a suggestion. This letter came across my awareness last week. Has anybody ever read Pontius Pilate's letter to Caesar about Jesus? Okay, I highly recommend it. I highly recommend it. Because the way that he talks about Jesus is the way that he would talk in reverent terms about the most profound, wise, loving, spiritual teacher you would ever encounter. It's an incredible letter. And it even goes through what happens during the crucifixion. So if you want a first-hand account, again, theoretically, of what this man was like, I highly recommend Pilate's letter to Caesar. And it will put you in a much better frame of mind. Okay, I just want to say thank you, everybody. Have a great eclipse. I appreciate you.
Amazing presentation, Robert Phoenix. Thank you so much. I just wanted to dovetail a little bit about some of the things that you were saying that we were discussing last night whenever we are trying to move out of that age of duality, where our perspective is that there's this force outside of us that is orchestrating some darkness. And I feel like this is a leap for many, and it's also very important that, honestly, humanity has been a little lazy the last couple thousand years, and we've been in this program of powerlessness, have we not? We've been asleep. And so, what does the darkness do? It wakes us up. It triggers us with a survival response, with an activation of, oh my, maybe we need to, start growing our own food. Maybe we need to lean on our community and reevaluate our values. So there's intelligence in the darkness, and we can lean into nature to trust that actually the dark forces, quote unquote, are playing a role at this moment of evolution and a huge turning of the wheel of the collective, because we're complacent. We're reliant on the very system that's leeching our energy. So, I don't know about you, but whenever all of the things get so intense and it feels like there's this force coming at us and we have to mobilize, well, we needed to mobilize, right? We needed to activate. And so, 100%, this is the time of the true Aquarian arrival of the Christ within, and the activation, and the taking back our power, and the waking up out of the dream. And so I just want to invite that, there's no coincidence that all these interesting things, the quote-unquote dark forces, work with astrology as well. That's what we're doing here, to counterbalance and to work alchemically and to activate the fullness and the capacity of the chakras within, of the consciousness within, which is upon us. And we know that we're all connected energetically as one organism. And so the more that we come together and we radiate and we magnify, the more that we take control and the more that we re-implement the true matrix and we dismantle